Welcome to Ideas, a time of conversation about all things board games. Community is built on conversations, and games are built on ideas.
Hey, my name is Brent here on Cloudy with the Chance of Meeples. Welcome to Ideas. Welcome to a brand new month. Ideas, a time in which we sit down with artists, designers, publishers in the board gaming hobby and talk about how they got their ideas from just ideas into the games that we love to play. And today we have a very special guest. We have an artist and a game designer, which I will talk about in a bit. But we have Andrew Bosley. Of course, if you know the game Everdell, that probably rings a bell. But welcome to Ideas there, Andrew.
Hey, thank you for having me, Brent. I appreciate it.
Oh, this is fantastic. So I just got a question. Where are you right now? Are you in like a home studio or where are you at?
Yeah, I live in Arizona. My studio is a separate building from my house. It's kind of a weird little compound we call our home. But I have a little building off to the side that I can do my work in. So
Do you find it easier than like getting up to go to work that it's a little bit more structured, that you're not just, going to the basement or going to your office and shutting the door?
for sure, I don't think I would have much of a problem. My wife was very much in favor of. I mean, we moved here to this location. A lot of different reasons why we came here into this town that we're in, into this property that we're at. But one of the things was the studio space. I would probably be fine, and I have worked in my closet in the past. I'm a bit of a workaholic. I really love what I do, and so it's not hard for me to get to work.
Mhm.
But my wife definitely loves having me in another building, not
Yep.
because she doesn't like me or anything, but she knows that she's a stay-at-home mom, and she knows that, or has been concerned that if I were working at home, either I would get in her way,
Mm.
or she'd be tempted to just go, Andrew, go take care of this thing, and then I wouldn't get any work done. And she's very supportive and conscientious of the work that I need to get done. So this has been a really good setup.
That's fantastic. So let's dive into your journey into this hobby, your journey into gaming. What does that look like? Let's talk about childhood. Did you play games growing up? But like, what does it look like?
Sure. Yeah, I played a ton of games when I was a kid. I mean, we were, uh, I'm old, so I didn't grow up with this kind of modern renaissance of board games in the States. So I played Battleship and Risk
Mm.
and Monopoly, and we had long nights of just lots of games. I loved to make games when I was a kid,
Mhm.
even in high school and junior high. I was working on games. I didn't think anything would come of that, and they didn't. None of the stuff I was working on at the time, for sure. Um, but it's funny, like it was never, having been in this industry professionally now for some time.
Mhm.
I look back, and it's I'm kind of shocked at just how much tabletop games were a part of my life from a very, very early point in my life. I
Mhm.
just didn't totally appreciate it. I mean, but I've always been a gamer, and so I've been playing more modern board games for 20 plus years, and been in the hobby for quite some time, even before coming in and professionally being a part of it.
Mhm.
Which again is just such a funny thing, because I loved this world of games, and it took me a very long time to go, maybe you might be able to do some work there.
Mhm.
It was certainly because of my background, had me looking in different directions. But yeah, no, I've been excited about board games for a very long time. I've dabbled in creating games when I was early, young, but even before I was working in this hobby as an artist, I was designing games, and I launched a card game, two technically, via Kickstarter before I worked on Everdell, and it's before anybody knew anything about my work in this industry. So
Okay, and we're going to talk about those two games momentarily a little bit. But
Sure.
what are you playing? What are you playing these days?
Right now, I'm playing a lot more on BGA than I do in person. I should be playing more. Should be getting things to the table. Oh gosh, what am I playing? Well, gosh, what we've been playing a lot of right now is Spots, which is not a very heavy. It's not a heavy game at all. It's a very very light game. Lots of dice rolling, but that's not like the meaty stuff I enjoy. I we have Lost Ruins of Arnak on our game table right now with the most recent expansion.
Okay.
So haven't finished that game yet, but I'm a big fan of the Arnak series, and so we've played quite a bit at our house. Played a lot of Tapestry. I'm a huge Scythe fan. Um, Gosh, lots of obscure random games, or at least it seems like it to me. There's so many games out there that we all have niche games. I'm sure that some people don't know about, but I love. There's a game called Council of Four. There's a game Attica that had a long history in our family. I very much like thematic games. Games with some meat to them, but are also feel like you're kind of jumping into a world. I'm a big sucker for those myself. So
Well, and it kind of speaks volumes to what you did to Everdell, which I'm going to jump ahead for that because you make a good point. So you're big into those thematic games. When you sign on with a publisher to be an artist of a game, I'm going to take Everdell. Oh, it's on this side. There you go. I'm going to take Everdell for an example because that's kind of the springboard game for you. Like you did artwork all the way back to like Cover Your Assets in like early 2010s, if I'm correct.
No, I did do Cover Your Assets, but I did the second edition, which was
Okay.
more recently.
Okay.
But
so
yeah, I've done some stuff before Everdell, but that was definitely the springboard, like you said.
That was springboard. So like you kind of obviously James Wilson. It's my favorite game, by the way. Played it like 230 times. Like I adore Everdell. Anyways, did you play a prototype of Everdell? Like, did you know anything of the game before you signed on to even just like the base game? Of course, they didn't have ProBrook or anything like that at that moment. But did you know anything of the game or of the world that you were creating?
The world was very brand new. The game had been in development for some time, so I had been in talks with Starling Games or Tabletop Tycoon about working on Everdell for a little bit of time. Some of the details are foggy. It's been a little while, but I remember meeting with the team at Gen Con one year, and they had given me a prototype. They had put together a prototype for me to take home, and then they had also worked on they had another one that we played and did several rounds together, but we didn't finish a full game. So I was aware of it, but it's funny. For most of the games I work on, most of the time I don't get a chance to play the games before I take on a project. I don't know if this makes sense, but I don't like screen games that I take on based on the mechanics. Maybe that would be good to do, but I don't feel like I'm a very good judge of what will be a good game. So I'm not like going, oh, I'm only going to work. And partly is because I don't want to restrict who I work for, like who I'll work with. I'll work with big companies. I'll work with first time publishers. I do a lot with first time publishers. And I'm happy to do that. So I'm not always 100% confident that a game, particularly from a first time publisher, whether that's going to be a successful game or not.
Mhm.
Everdell. So and then also when I do play games ahead of time ahead of me starting a project, I'm not a very, like I said, I'm not a very good judge. I actually really have a hard time. Um, I try to avoid playing them myself before I take on a project. Or not specifically before, but I I have like this fear, like when I go and I play a game,
Mhm.
like and people like I'm playing it with the designers who have played it 1,000 times, and then I'm coming in, in a 2 hour call, and all right, let's get you on, you know, tabletop simulator,
Simulator.
and and we'll play, through a whole game, and it's like I can't stand that. I love the idea of being and hanging out with these people, but I'm terrified that I'm going to look like a complete idiot because I don't know this game hardly at all. So I tend to not even play them. I will watch the other people playing them, and I will
Mhm.
get a gist of what it is. But anyway, long story short, I did get a chance to see a little bit of Everdell ahead of time,
Mhm.
but it definitely was not like it probably had zero impact on whether I was taking the project or not.
Mhm.
It
Okay.
was definitely thematic. It was something that I knew, like, oh, this is right up my alley. This is what I would want to be. This is what I do draw
Mhm.
and paint for fun
Mhm.
when, you know, and so if someone's going to pay me to do it, well,
Mhm.
then, yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Sign me up, right?
Yeah. It was an easy sell. And then I love that it's been such a well received game
Mhm.
as a game,
Uh,
mechanics in addition to
yeah.
the art as well. So.
So did they approach you, or like you said, and I kind of alluded to, Everdell was kind of like that door that kind of just got like broken down for the opportunities that you have had since then. But again, you did Mission Red Planet. You did like one of the editions of Citadels, correct?
Mhm.
So you did some of these others. So your name was kind of getting out there. At what point was it like, hey, I'm kind of doing this little thing, and all of a sudden, like, hey, Days of Wonder is contacting me. Hey, Tabletop Tycoon is contacting me. Like, when was that? Not specifically the year, but maybe after what project, or where was that in your
Sure.
career?
So, so Citadels and Mission Red Planet to me were just one-off projects. I was at the time I was working on those. I was doing some like fantasy illustration for like collectible card games. That's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of work I was doing for Fantasy Flight Games, which was the company that got me. I had built a relationship with them, and so I did those other games. But they were really like those cards, any sort of things I was doing for Fantasy Flight at the time was very, very side stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was still heavily involved in concept art and video games. I had just quit my job at Ubisoft as a concept artist and was working freelance, and I was just continuing to follow that path when when Mission Red Planet and Citadels came around. Um, I so um, so I mentioned earlier, like I was, even after doing those, I didn't consider board games as a full time. I didn't even consider it as a viable option for me career wise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was working on my own game at the time, so I was going to Gen Con. I went to Gen Con, I think, even 1 year without even considering talking to publishers about,
Mm-hmm.
hey, do you need any artwork? I don't know what. Oh, I was so slow on the uptake with any of this stuff, but by second year of going to Gen Con, I did like 3 years in a row of going to like the first exposure playtest hall to like play test my game with the partner I was working on the game with. We were doing that. It was I think the second and third year that I started, like, oh, hey, approaching a publishers and saying, here's my card, here's some of the work I've done.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, do you need any additional artwork, any artwork for your games? And I feel like I know I gave my card to Tabletop Tycoon, to Dan Yarrington
Arrington.
at Tabletop Tycoon at one point. I remember him.
Hmm.
And for the longest time, I felt like that was the contact
Hmm.
that established the relationship between me and Starling Games, but it actually wasn't. It wasn't until maybe a few years ago that I learned that that wasn't actually. Bless his heart, Dan. I don't. He may have passed my card along to someone. He may not have. But Dan May, who was the art director working on uh, Everdell at the time,
Hmm.
he found me independently,
Okay.
and reached out and asked me if I'd be interested in doing it. So at the time, I was, like I said, still balancing a lot of concept art work. I had been approached at right around the same time from by I can't remember, Fantasy Flight, to do. They basically said, we'd love you to do some work for Keyforge, and we'll give you as much work
Hmm.
as you would like to do on Keyforge.
Wow.
And so I kind of just said to Dan, I have this project I can be doing with Keyforge, or I can work on Everdell, and so we talked and negotiated things, and in the end I went with Everdell, which I was very glad for. I still did some Keyforge stuff, but Everdell was the dream job.
Yeah.
So they reached out to me, but there was actually a tiny bit of courting on my part as well. After talking to Dan May,
Hmm.
who was my primary contact from that point, uh, working on pretty much all of the games, Everdell games. When after he'd reached and pitched the game to me, I was so excited. I really wanted to do it. So I started drawing, and I knew he knew my social media and was following me on social media. So I
Hmm.
started actually drawing Everdell characters the way I might have imagined them, not knowing a lot.
Hmm.
um, I started drawing those characters and posting those, kind of just hoping he would see them and just go, okay, Andrew's gonna just keep making these things anyway, so might as well have him make them for us. So
Do
uh,
you man, I want to go back to your designs, but real quick, do you have a favorite art piece that you drew in the Everdell universe? And whether that's like just something that speaks to you in the sense of this sounds so hokey, but maybe like I don't know, it's just really special that in your heart that sounds really really hokey. But like, is there something that you absolutely love? Like my wife, I'm looking across my dining room, and we have I built an Everwall. I have 12 of the prints in a
uh,
grid. That's our living room, like
that's awesome.
decorations. It's 12 of the prints. So like, do you have a favorite art piece?
Sure. I mean, I think most of my other favorites from all the different expansions. I think my favorites are from the base game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm particularly a fan of the Ranger. I love the Inn.
Mm.
The Inn was one of the first illustrations I did for Everdell, and perhaps maybe there was just a little bit more. I don't want to say that to make it sound like I didn't care about other things, and as I went on, but there was definitely a lot of heart put into some of those earlier pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, you know, so yes, like the Inn is one of those. What's so funny is I don't tell anybody, but everybody's listening. I don't really like the innkeeper, but I love the inn.
Mm.
I love the castle and I love the king. Who do I not like? I
And
mean,
now
it's funny. I
and now you're talking about the art and not the cards in the game or the like the powers.
I'm definitely talking about the art.
Okay, okay. My wife,
It,
my wife does not like the power. We just did a top
uh,
10 lowest ranked Everdell cards, and the in wasn't in the top 10 because
okay.
she
I'm
doesn't like me going to it.
I am. This is not a secret. Many people know this, but I really love Everdell the game.
Mhm.
But I have not had a chance to play it a lot. I've probably played it, 6 to 10 times. I don't know for
Okay.
sure, and I've never played any of the expansions. But
Really?
we want to so bad, but we have all like I don't get a chance to play. I'm part of a gaming group. I'm
Mhm.
not the one who chooses what games are played. I'm Someone else is leading that discussion and making the plans, and I just go and enjoy hanging out. So when I want to pick the games, it's me and my kids.
Mm.
My wife plays games, but not the heavier games,
Yeah.
and so it's like how often it's I'm so limited in the amount of time I have to get my kids together and play games. So
Mhm.
it's so slow. I'll get, and then we get excited about a variety of things. So we'll
Yep.
get a game of Tapestry, and we'll get a game of Scythe in. So Everdell, unfortunately, is just one that I've played and I love, but we just haven't played it a lot. So I don't know, like there's so many people who it's so fun to hear people go, this combination is so great, and I think I play the same game every time I do it, and it's like my favorite is the chip sweep and the twig barge, and it's the barge toad, and so I'm not a I'm not very savvy when it comes to what are the best cards. So I'm really
Right.
very critical of the art and not very critical of the game itself. So
Fantastic. So let's back it up a little bit. You
yep.
went to Gen Con a couple times, 3 times, you say, to pitch. You did like Planecrafters, and then you did another game, Lightning and Bolt.
Yes.
I think to a degree, and I should just ask you, Planecrafters took off, no pun intended, but did Lightning and Bolt, is that still a thing? Did it ever come out?
They did. They
Okay.
did. So they both came out. They both went to Kickstarter. They both funded
Okay.
and fulfilled. They both have slightly different stories. I did both of them with a partner.
Mhm.
So Planecrafters was the big project that I spent years and years working on. I probably was working with my partner on this for about 4 to 5 years working on the design for Planecrafters. And I'm very, very proud of it. I very much like Planecrafters. There's plenty of things that could be fixed about it, I'm sure. But we're very, very pleased with the whole package. The campaign went well, as in we fulfilled, people were happy. We're very proud of the product that we delivered. It was not a huge success financially. We I think broke even until no. I think we had made some money until the warehouse that we were storing them in finally said, "Hey, Andrew, nobody's buying this. We don't want to store this in our warehouse anymore," which was really funny. So we need you to ship these out to wherever you want them. So we paid the shipping to send 500 copies from Florida to Idaho, and then we broke even. And then we had not made a profit at that point.
Dang.
So it was not a financial success, but something we were proud that we had made. Lightning and Bolt was similar, other than the time frame was much, much shorter. And I had not been part of the design of this game right from the beginning. A good friend of mine, David Somerville, who was the designer for Vast. We had been friends for a very long time, and he approached me and just said, "Hey, could you do some sketches for this game I made for my daughter?" Zero play testing beyond him and his daughter. And I was like, "Sure, let's do this." And I was drawing the stuff, and I learned a little bit more about the game, and I was like, "Oh, I actually think it's a really great little game." Like, for that, it was meant to scale appropriately for gamers and their kids who might be younger and not experienced with the gaming yet, but get them but be able to team up and play a game together. So we did that, and I finished a whole bunch of art. We launched it. It did fine for what it was, but we did what Kickstarter as a make 100 back in the day, where it was like, okay, we only made 100 copies of that game, and we sold out very quickly. We got a lot of print and plays sold and things like that. We knew we wanted to move it forward after that was all done, to do a new edition, a wider release, and all that sort of stuff. But over time, I was busy. David Somerville was busy. Long story short, they are still out there. They both have been bought by other publishers, and so they are currently under development, and will be released. Planecrafters in particular is much more closer, and so it's getting the art, I believe, will be staying mostly the same, but the game will be, and the game will stay largely the same, but there are some modifications that are being made by the publisher that has taken this on. That same publisher has taken on Lightning and Bolt, but that's a little bit lower on the totem pole as far as it being in development. But it is being made, so it will be hopefully something that will come out and people will get to see it, because they both were great little concepts, little designs. So
that's fantastic. And so the art is still your art in Planecrafters? Right on. That's
very
fantastic.
different than what people are used to seeing.
Right.
Of my very different style, but one I had a lot of fun with. So
okay, and that kind of leads me into my next question as we get closer to wrapping up here. You said it's different than the style that folks are used to. So let's just use Everdell as the style that folks are used to. Whether you want to go down in history as known as the Everdell guy or not, it may or may not happen. But like, how do you not just recreate that in future projects? Meaning, like, where do you get like kind of your inspiration? Because you see a game like Everdell, you see Flock Together that just recently funded, and it's like, that's Andrew Bosley's art. Like, it's yours. It's so captivating, and it's so unique, and it's awesome. I love it. How do you not just like kind of get into that cycle of recreating stuff that is similar? Like, it kind of looks the same. Does that make sense?
Sure. No, it's definitely something I think about a lot. I think it's the artistic that there's a part of me that does not want to do the same. You know, I'm sure it's like a I don't know, a comedian. Not comedians tell the same jokes all over the time, all over the place. But
like,
I mean,
musicians don't want to put out the same CD.
Exactly.
CD. Oh, I'm old. Not CD. Same album. No one's playing CDs. They're back to records.
I understand. No, same sort of thing. Like I, for the sake of my clients and for me, it's not as interesting if I'm just redoing the same thing that's been done before. And Everdell, of course, is the project that most people know me for. And so I do have plenty of people who say, hey, Andrew, could we do a critter game? And if I take those on, and I don't always take those types of projects on, partly because I don't necessarily want to be pigeonholed or, you know, into that particular thing for creative reasons. When I do them, I am purposely trying to figure out for myself how am I going to make this different. Stylistically, I'm not necessarily going to change how I paint. Planecrafters is a unique thing, a one-off thing that is very different stylistically. But when I do approach a game, there are other ways that I try to push the creativity for myself and then ultimately make it a different looking game than what's been done before. That may or may be, I may be successful or not. I don't know all the time. But I am trying to push that. So I am motivated to do that personally. And ultimately I think that helps my clients, and they're happy with that as well.
And I wasn't alluding to your stylistic change, because you're hitting the nail on the head again and again. Obviously, like, seeing on BGG, you know, you did Flow. That's not even released, but that's coming out, right? You did Flow, no? Yeah, and you did like coming with Tangerine Games, Apple Grove or something. And I see the box cover. It's like, that's Andrew, that's Bosley art. And so, yeah, your style's not going to change, but it's just kind of that, you know, you mentioned it. People are like, hey, let's cash in on this critter. Let's get Andrew Bosley on the project. And you're like, whoa. Like, you don't want to be pigeonholed. So that's kind of what I was alluding to. And you gave me exactly what
it's hard. It's hard because I love it. I grew up reading the Redwall series. I grew up, watching The Secret of Nim and American Tail and Land Before Time. You know, I'm a big Don Bluth fan. I'm a big, there's so many things from growing up that influenced me that fit in that world that I enjoy being there. I enjoy working on that type of stuff, but professionally, I have one of the main reasons why, I do that. I limit how often I do this is I have personal projects I'm very, very excited about that I want to share and let people know about it. And they are not critter based things. And so I don't necessarily want to go, I'm hoping, I know this will happen, but I hope it doesn't happen constantly, is like, oh, that's an Andrew's got a game. Oh, it doesn't have any mice in it. No, never mind.
Yeah.
And I mean, I am putting some things in there that will appeal to that fan base in those personal projects, but it's not exclusively a animals walking around in clothes doing things. So it's so I don't want to disappoint people with that, though. I know I will.
Right. Well, and that's kind of the nature of the beast, because there's games and be like, oh yeah, this, and then you always have that outlier. Oh, I wish it had push your luck elements. It's like, well, let's leave well enough alone at times, right? And just take it for what it is in that sense. But this has been awesome, and I love hearing stories like that. I love hearing the backstories. I'm a big musician guy. I'm not a musician. I'm a big music guy, so I love hearing things about like the process of writing, and we wrote this on the tour with this band, and we hooked up a little microphone to our iPhone and strum this. I love that. So hearing your stories of going to Gen Con and giving a business card, which actually probably is not the way or the path down to Everdell. That wasn't the path that took, but you took or whatever. But I love hearing that. So this has been fantastic. I just want to thank you for taking the time. And just if people want to know more about your artwork, like you have a website, they can see like some of your work and some of the projects that you're doing and things like that. Like how can people see more of your lovely work?
Sure. So my website is bosleyart.com.
Okay.
I have a Discord group for fans, and I have a Patreon. I'm not active on social media at all, and so but we've created a really, really sweet community in this Discord channel. It's the Wits End Discord, which is Wits End is my personal brand of projects, and so we have. It's free. It's available to everybody. There's some extra exclusive things to Patreon backers, but I share lots of stuff there. I play games with. We get on BGA. We have a group of people that we all get on BGA and play together. And anyway, if people want to learn more see more about my art, my website's definitely the place to go to. That's where they could get a link to both the Discord and the Patreon, and my newsletter. And it's those three things that are where people can kind of get information and updates.
Okay, perfect. So bosleyart.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll put that link in the description of this video. And again, thank you so much for taking the time. I believe that community is built on conversation, just like games are built on ideas. And so that's what ideas is all about. So check out Andrew, all of his games, all the beautiful illustrations that he's done. I guess not his games, but the games he's illustrated. There you go. Talking's hard sometimes. Let's just be honest. But check out bosleyart.com. We're on Facebook, Cloudy with Chance of Meeples. Till next time, grab your umbrella. The forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember to grab your umbrella because the forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.